If you look at the front pages this morning, they are rather out of date. The Daily Telegraph, Rose, I leaked Farage's story to the BBC, but I won't resign. The Times this morning says number 10 wants NatWest boss to quit over Farage. Now, when I went to bed last night, Dame Alison Rose was still in place, and the board said they had full confidence. So I tweeted last night that clearly she was about to go. The minute they say they have full confidence, it means they're probably going to go. And this morning, we found out that Alison Rose had finally stepped down as chief executive immediately after admitting that it was her that leaked private, confidential financial information to Simon Jack, to the BBC, when she sat next to him at a dinner, which I find absolutely extraordinary, that someone in that position would actually leak confidential information, financial information about one of their clients to a third party, to a journalist. Now, the question is, what happens from here? Many people are saying that this isn't the end of the story. In fact, Nigel Farage himself has doubled down, saying actually the Coutts CEO, this Peter Flavel, must take the ultimate responsibility for debanking me based on my political views. Also, Sir Howard Davies, now he is the chair of NatWest, he is responsible for overall governance. He has clearly failed in this task, least of all by endorsing their conduct. And in my view, they should all go. That's the question I've been asking this morning. Should they all go? Also, in terms of governance generally, for other banks and building societies, I find it deeply disturbing that they can debank you because they don't happen to like your political beliefs. That cannot be right. I'm delighted to say I'm joined now by Alex Salmond, former First Minister of Scotland and leader of the Alba Party. A very good morning to you, Alex.
Good morning, David. I was just thinking, you must go to bed pretty early because I think Dame Alison Rose was out by midnight. So well done to you. Early to bed, early to rise.
Well, indeed. Early bird catches the worm. I get up at 2:50, so you're right. I was in bed very early last night. But just what do you make about this? I mean, clearly you're a very important figure in politics. You know very well how politicians are put under the spotlight. I find it abhorrent that you could be debanked regardless of your political party based on your political views alone.
Well, I should declare interest. I mean, but before I fell among thieves in the Palace of Westminster, I was the economist of the Royal Bank of Scotland.
I know that.
In the days, incidentally, when it was a decent medium-range bank which made money every year, was perfectly respectable and concentrated on looking after its customers' accounts. Unfortunately, things changed a little since then. But, yeah, of course, it's quite wrong. I think you've got to get things in perspective. I mean, the mistake is not NatWest wanting to change Nigel Farage from Coutts Bank to NatWest Bank. He was offered banking facilities. That's not the issue. The issue is twofold. The fact that from the minutes of some mysterious meeting in Coutts Bank, what on earth they were doing, spending their time debating Nigel Farage's politics, God only knows. That's a mistake, a big mistake. They shouldn't be doing that. And secondly, of course, Dame Alison Rose spouting off to some BBC journalist about the information about any of her customers. There's also a question for the BBC, incidentally. I'm not sure. I mean, OK, I know journalists say, oh, it's our job to get the story. It doesn't matter where it comes from. You know, if you're sitting beside the chief executive of a major bank, you shouldn't be asking that person about the individual financial affairs of one of their customers. You just shouldn't. I mean, I'm not so sure it's that far removed from hacking somebody's phone. Now, of course, the reply that Dame Alison Rose should have given at the dinner was, I don't discuss the individual financial affairs of any of my customers.
Absolutely right.
Now she's had to resign, quite rightly so. And I think the idea she could have stayed in office, it was ridiculous.
I mean, it's extraordinary. I mean, she gave a statement. She said it was a serious error of judgment. And she says it's wrong to respond to any question raised by the BBC about this case. And she wanted to extend her sincere apologies to Mr Farage. I mean, even admitting that he had a bank account at Coutts, I think is absolutely extraordinary. And the fact is, she said she believed it was in the public domain. Since when is that relevant?
Well, I think, to be fair, Nigel Farage had already put it in the public domain that he was trying to hang on to his bank account at Coutts. I'm not so sure she could have denied that, but her correct reply, of course, was to say, we don't discuss the individual financial affairs of any of our customers. Now, just let's get this in context here. I mean, I know that that many people have, raised a flag for Dame Alison because she's the only woman to become chief executive of one of the major clearing banks. And good on her, and that was a magnificent achievement. But that doesn't absolve her of her banking responsibilities. In day one, year one of any banking course and banking qualifications, you get drummed into your head that you must never breach the confidentiality of any of the bank's customers. And if any clerk in any bank anywhere in this country had divulged the financial affairs of the local greengrocer, then they would have been sacked immediately. That's absolute. And it is more worrying than I can tell you that somebody who's paid £5 million a year, as Dame Alison Rose was, doesn't know that elementary, absolute rule of banking, that bankers don't divulge the financial affairs of any of their customers, even if they find their politics totally repellent.
Do you think she should be stripped of her damehood?
I'm not a great person for. In fact, it's very unusual for me to call for people to resign. I mean, my general opinion on these matters is far too many people resign, and people get stripped of this and that at the drop of a hat. I'm not really interested in that. Clearly, she breached a fundamental cardinal rule of banking. She had to resign. It's one of the few occasions of public office where I think that's merited. Trimming people, I mean, I don't know what she got a damehood for. It could have been services to a range of things. And therefore, I think that would be over harsh. I don't think, once somebody has fallen from office, then they should be tarred and feathered as well. I mean, that's my general view. But I think, there's two things need to be done now. Incidentally, Dame Alison Rose was very keen to change the name of the group from the Royal Bank to the NatWest under her, which was quite a disgraceful thing to do, incidentally. I mean, you don't change hundreds of years of history just because a bank has fallen on bad times and lost $1 billion or $2 billion. I mean, if we did that to every bank, there wouldn't be a single bank in the world which kept its same name. Now, that was her prejudice because she was a NatWest banker and didn't like the idea that the group was called the Royal Bank of Scotland. Maybe now they should consider changing it back to the Royal Bank of Scotland, now that NatWest has become known as the bank who don't keep the confidentiality of their customers, which is one of the most damaging things you could possibly have for a bank, to have a reputation you divulge financial information.
I think we're both agreed on that. What do you make of this front page story in the Times? This is Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, essentially saying he's told some of Britain's biggest businesses they must do more to help with the cost of living as they prepare to announce large profits. Now, obviously, he goes on to say oil companies need to pass this down at the petrol pump, food producers need to pass down savings. Of course, we know on the back of this, Unilever, this is the multinational that makes things like Dove and Marmite. We saw Marmite going up by 21%, Ben & Jerry's ice cream as well. Their profits, their first half profits, jumped by 21% to £4.5 billion. And back into your sector, Lloyds Banking Group, Barclays, NatWest are going to reported to going to be showing their profits of about 12 billion in the first 6 months of this year. I find it a bit rich that Jeremy Hunt is telling people they need to help people who are really struggling. How about the government actually helping people?
I think that's a very fair point, David. I mean, I would say that I think there are certain areas of the economy that need looked at quickly, and banking is one of them. And this is not a matter that requires great sophisticated analysis. Everybody knows as interest rates have shot up because of the complete and utter incompetence of the Bank of England, where the Chancellor, incidentally, should be directing his fire, then the mortgage rates have exceeded the rises in interest rates. But strangely enough, savings rates for people who are saving have gone up much more gradually. In other words, the banking margins have increased dramatically. And banks love high interest rates because they're able to operate on that margin much, much more easily. Now, that would be something well worth looking at, in my opinion, as indeed would be some uncompetitive practices, perhaps, in the major suppliers or the major supermarkets. But listen, your point alludes to, what's the government doing? It's not virtue signaling, it's sort of vice signaling. It's, everybody else is to blame except us. And of course, what Jeremy Hunt was an extremely nice man, incidentally, but I don't think he's capable of meeting the extent of the crisis in the UK economy. What Jeremy Hunt should be doing is sorting out the key aspects of economic policy. Firstly, he should sack Andrew Bailey and the entire board of monetary board of the Bank of England. They're their operation of high interest rates as their single club to bear down on inflation is wrecking businesses, it's wrecking people's assets, it's also wrecking the Tory party's chances of having any hope in the election. I don't mind that, incidentally, but they're doing great damage to a great number of people. And instead of that, Jeremy Hunt should be coming up with an alternative policy to tackle inflation. And just because the Tory party seem totally devoid of ideas, here's one. Why not reduce VAT by 5%? And then say that over a period of time, let's say 5 years, it'll be increased by 1%. So it's a fiscally prudent thing to do. But it would take the headline of inflation down by at least 4%. The Prime Minister would meet his end-year target. He would start to squeeze the inflationary spiral out of the system. And above all, you wouldn't wreck the lives and finances of families and small businesses, which is being done just now by using interest rates as the only weapon in the economy. That's a totally ridiculous, farcical thing to do.
And many economists agree with you. Cost-push inflation, and I think Russell Quirk said, oh no, it was Justin Urquhart-Stewart today saying that it's basically you've got a hammer and you just keep hitting the nail when it's actually not the right tool to use.
Absolutely right. I mean, a long, long time ago, I know that, David, though, that probably Ted Heath is not one of your favourite politicians of all time. But nonetheless, a long time ago when I was there, I heard him make a speech in the House of Commons when he berated a past Tory Chancellor as being a one-club golfer. And the analogy, it was like being in a bunker and sort of taking out your free wood and slashing away at the ball and wondering why it didn't come out the bunker. Well, that's exactly like using interest rates as a means of bearing down on short-term inflationary pressure. You know, apart from anything else, an interest rate rise takes maybe 15 months to work its way through the economy. So there's no point in raising interest rates today and expect inflation to come down tomorrow. It doesn't even work in these terms.
So very quickly, sorry, time is tight. It's mooted. They're going to put interest rates up 3 more times. Do you think that will happen?
Well, it may well do. They're crazy enough to do it. I mean, the thing to remember in economics is the Chancellor doesn't know what he's doing. And the only organisation on earth who are worse forecasters than the International Monetary Fund are the Bank of England. That's another reason why the whole Monetary Policy Committee should be getting their jotters. They should be going the same way as Dame Alison Rose.
Alex, very good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Alex Salmond there, former First Minister of Scotland and leader of the Alba Party.